next speaker is Dr. Wahab Suri. He is the Associate Professor in the Department of Philosophy at the University of Karachi. He is a part of the Board of Studies Department of Visual Studies at KU, where he has designed and taught a number of courses related to philosophical theory and the application in the arts. Dr. Suri is also a visiting faculty member at the Institute of Business Administration and British School of Art and Architecture. He has a PhD in political philosophy from the University of Karachi, where he wrote a dissertation analyzing Rawls' theory of justice. His research interests lie in political philosophy and postmodernism, and he has published a number of topics within these two areas in both English and Urdu and in the popular press. His first book, entitled Democracy in Question, is to be published by the Karachi University Press. Dr. Suri.
The title of my paper is The Truth and Method, the Dilemma of Post-Colonial Developing Society in Postmodern Intellectualism. The central idea of my paper is that postmodern solution to reconcile the antagonistic relationship between traditional forces and liberal modern forces in contemporary world is counterproductive. I will try my best not to be technical regarding the explication of this idea, but before that we have to focus on certain basic presumptions. When I use word tradition, that specifically means that it's not synonymous to culture, because culture accounts everything which express or which embodies in the experience of human civilization, but it's not necessarily deals with the issue of the origin. Whereas tradition embodies the experience of human civilization with respect to its origin. That's how that has been discussed right now. We are living in a very different world, the world in which the discourse of good has been dominated by the discourse of right. The discourse of culture has dominated the discourse of traditions. The discourse of beauty has been dominated by the discourse of the marketization of beauty, etc. So we are living in a very different world. There are two fundamental tendencies which are prevailing in our part of the world, that markets are expanding, markets are globalizing. And there is another very important tendency, that is liberal cosmopolitan state structure is expanding and it is imposing its cosmopolitan liberalism over those parts of the globe which are not being acknowledged as liberal, democratic, modern and up to some extent civilized. So there is a discourse between civility and barbarianism is going on that has been politicized. And this globalization process has generated an interesting idea, that is globalization. The globalization means think globally, act locally. You should think globally and act locally. Because of this antagonistic relation between globalization and localization, the issue of local values and local culture has been addressed. But unfortunately, the discourse has been overtly dominated by the discourse of the culture rather than traditions. While the tradition has an antagonistic relationship with contemporary process of globalization, because my friend has already comprehensively addressed this issue that modernity has an antagonistic relationship with the issue of modernity. The post-colonial societies are different from Western tradition, not just because of their genealogy, but because the way modernism has been presented in our part of the world and under what condition modernism has been presented in our part of the world is very different. In our part of the world, modernism has been introduced when we were ruled by the colonial masters. And it has been presented as if modern thought can provide a neutral perspective or in fact a relatively superior methodology to understand reality or to discover reality the way it exists. And unfortunately, many of our intellectuals realize that we can justify our religious and traditional particularities with respect to modern methodological applications. By the application of modern methodologies, we can discover the reality which has been revealed to us. And for the last 60 or 70 years or so, what actually we are trying to do, we are trying to provide a religious justification of modernity or modern justification of religiosity. So in both ways, what actually the literature has been produced, it gives an impression that both address the same reality. There are two different ways, and the realm of self-evident evidence is possible by the usage of modern scientific methodology. That's what we are doing for the last 60 or 70 years. And in technical terms, according to Michel Foucault, what actually we are doing, we are in the process of making modern self-identity, because our intelligentsia was convinced that one of the major threat, one of the major barrier in a progressive future of this country or in this part of the world is the nature of traditional self that has been dominated for centuries. That kind of self should be replaced by the modern man, by the modern self. That's what our institutions are doing for the last 60 or 70 years or so. But this process of modernization or this technology of modern self-identity has ruthlessly been criticized and has been questioned by the postmodern thinkers. So postmodern thought has challenged the legitimacy of the basic presumptions concerning who am I, what should be the nature of a real, progressive, civilized society, what should be the nature of state institution and statecraft that has been questioned by the postmodern thinkers. The modernists were claiming that if we modernize, if we develop a modern self-identity, then we are going to guarantee peace, we are going to guarantee progress, and we are going to guarantee a mutual, harmonious relationship with other human beings. But according to Marcuse, this has not been realized. Modernity makes highest brutality possible ever in the history of mankind. 80 million people have been slaughtered at the heart of Europe over a span of 40 years. So many of the postmodern thinkers realize that there is a certain fundamental glaring problem in modern conception of self, modern conception of society, and modern conception of bureaucratically determined statecraft. Postmodernism has posed different challenges to different societies. it has questioned the reality of the modern life world enjoyed by the post-industrial societies. But in our part of the world, it has taken away the dream that has been dreamed by our intelligentsia 70 years back, and now it is become a recurring nightmare. Many of our people believe that third world had to develop first before even think about real progress. So they are not ready to understand the significance and the possibility of what modernism can offer. But the issue is that if modernism has some problems, is it possible for us to revise those pre-modern traditions which are or which were the part of our society? Many people believe that it should be an archaeological study, because now they become fossils relics, because we have developed generations which are convinced that we should live a life that is technologically driven, and the cost of that technology, we are ready to bear the cost of that technologically driven life force, and we are not going to revert back. But there are certain postmodern thinkers, for instance, Gadamer, he believes that modern method to understand reality was problematic because it presumes that you can have a neutral perspective through which you can understand reality. He believes that we cannot understand reality without incorporation of traditions. Traditions provide fundamental hermeneutical category to understand reality, to understand your particularities. And he believes that the rehabilitation of traditions and the rehabilitation of legitimate prejudices in your hermeneutical activity is the fundamental need of contemporary world. The question arises that if we accept this process of rehabilitation of tradition, what should be the parameters? If we say that modernity cannot provide us an Archimedean position through which we can understand reality as it is, on the other way around, tradition provides us a framework in which we derive a conclusion from already acknowledged source that has been proven to be true. So we cannot say that one tradition is necessarily superior to another tradition, because every tradition has its own origin and every tradition has its own legitimate criterion. If historical process is the criterion, you cannot derive any criterion, because historical process is providing the legitimacy of tradition in itself. So is there any meta-traditional paradigm through which you can understand reality? According to Gadamer, we can never transcend from hermeneutical circle. Every interpretation is just an interpretation. So if we follow the pattern of the tradition without referring to a meta-historical narrative, without referring to a meta-traditional narrative, we can never transcend from the hermeneutical circle. That eventually justifies a society in which different traditions are combating with each other, and you cannot justify which tradition is superior to another superior. Religions generally claim that we have a source through which we can transcend the historical process. For instance, Bible claims that it has a message which is not historically been derived. It has been revealed. It has not been derived from the historical process. It has been revealed by the God. Now it's the origin, and you should revert towards the sources. Same is the case with Quran. Same is the case with Judaism. So the revealed religions provide a relatively different connotation of tradition, because the way we define tradition is different from the context of revealed religion from the rest of the traditional sources. Because revealed religions claim that we have a source that has been revealed, that has not been derived from the historical process, that's not the creation of human intelligentsia, that's not the creation of human self. But the question is that whom we consider. So that is the million-dollar question. But if you follow the traditional pattern, we have to address this fundamental issue from where we should derive the legitimacy of the origin and the prioritization of the origin. Because of this problem, in our part of the world, people don't rely on tradition, rather than they prefer to have an objective criterion to understand tradition itself. They don't derive solution from the tradition. In fact, they use tradition to justify their position. So what I personally feel that traditional discourse with reference to postmodernism has generally been presented as a solution. Why? Because postmodernism claims that human self is constantly in the process of change. Therefore, we cannot provide any ultimate answer, any ultimate solution, any ultimate answer to the issue that whom we consider as prior. But if we accept postmodern anti-foundationalist paradigm to resolve this contradiction, that affects both the liberal intelligentsia as well as the traditionalists, because there is a compatibility between modernism and traditionalism. The compatibility between modernism and traditionalism is that both are foundationalists. Both believe that there are certain foundations through which we can understand reality. Tradition rested upon the assumption the practices of our ancestors are superior, whereas modernity claims that universally valid reason provides the ultimate answer. But as far as the compatibility is concerned, both are foundationalists. Whereas postmodernists believe that there is no foundation exists at all. Neither in epistemologically you cannot provide any foundation, neither ontologically you can provide a foundation, neither you can provide linguistically any foundation. So it provides a foundation-less solution to reconcile this antagonistic relationship. If we accept postmodern solution to reconcile this antagonistic relationship, it bleeds both the parties. Why? Because the modernism claims that they have a foundation, the rational foundation to discover reality. Tradition claims that we have a foundation that has been derived from the historical experience or the continuity of our ancestors. In case of religion, religion claims that we have revealed foundations. So if you are following the pattern of orthodox religious scholars, they believe that we have the foundation in revelation, or traditionalists believe that we have the foundation in the practices of our ancestors, or modernity believes that we have the foundation in modern rational self-identity. Postmodernism demolishes all these foundations and creates a vacuum that cannot lead you to anywhere. So postmodern solution is generally being used to counter globalization or American imposition of liberal cosmopolitanism, etc. Strategically, it is problematic in the sense that it demolishes, it criticizes, or it negates the existence of all grand narratives. Postmodernism is not just the critique of modernity, it's the critique of all grand narratives. It wipes out the foundation of all those claims which are rested upon the assumption that we have some source to understand reality as it is. Postmodernists believe that you don't have reality. In fact, you create reality by your interpretations of reality. So if there is no reality, so why we are searching by using revelation or by the practicing of our ancestors or by using universally valid reason? So in our part of the world, it's quite